Ever since MOZA released their first direct drive wheel a few years ago, it seems we've all been waiting for a console-specific racing wheel. And the good news is MOZA Racing has finally delivered exactly that with this Xbox-compatible R3 Racing Wheel Bundle. In this review, I'm going to look at exactly what you get in this R3 bundle. I'll look at how well each product is designed, how easy it is to use with your Xbox, and more importantly, just how well it all performs. Now, MOZA has sent me this unit to review, but I do want to say that this won't affect my thoughts and final feedback in this review in any way. So let's jump into what this R3 Racing Bundle is all about and what you get. Now, the MOZA R3 is an Xbox compatible direct drive racing wheel and pedal bundle that is compatible right out of the box. That means all you really need to do is hook the pedals to your wheelbase, mount your wheel, connect the power and connect it to your Xbox via the USB cable. Once that's done, you can turn everything on and it should just work. Oh, and don't forget you do have to mount this racing wheel to a pretty sturdy platform. It is a direct drive racing wheel, so bolting it down properly should be a priority. But that is pretty easy to do thanks to the included table clamp, but I'll touch more on that later on. Now, the wheelbase itself produces a peak torque figure of 3.9 Nm, meaning it is slightly detuned from the R5 wheelbase that MOZA produced as well. Now, this is the smallest torque figure that we've seen from a MOZA wheelbase, but it still beats many console racing wheels that are within a similar price range. Inside the box, you get MOZA's ES steering wheel. Now, this is MOZA's entry-level steering wheel that retails for around $129 if it's purchased individually. The wheel in this bundle is almost identical to the version found with the R5 bundle, other than a tweaked hand grip material and the Xbox branded buttons. You also get the R3 wheelbase itself, which is even smaller than the already small R5 wheelbase. And this time around, MOZA has gone with a pretty out there design. Then there are the pedals. Again, these are the same pedals that are found in the R5 bundle, and these ones can't actually be purchased individually. This is a 2-pedal set, although there is an optional 3rd pedal which you can add to complete the set. You can also buy a small brake kit which improves the feel of the brake pedal, and I'd highly recommend you do. Again, I'll touch on that a little bit more later. Finally, you get all the bits you needed to go racing: power supply, cables, bolts, and the table or desk clamp. Overall, this is a pretty baller kit that you get here, especially considering the price. This whole bundle costs £399 for me in the UK, or $399 for those in the States, and around €440 for mainland Europe. Now, considering we're getting a completely Xbox compatible direct drive racing wheel, that's pretty good value. The PC only R5 bundle, which is very similar to this, retails for around $100 more. To give a little perspective on how that price stacks up against the competition, I do want to just have a quick look at other racing wheels that are available around a similar price range. Now, straight away, you've got the classic Logitech G923. That racing wheel has been a staple for many sim racers, including myself. Now, this wheel retails for around £350 or dollars, depending where you get it from. You can get it cheaper than that from places like Amazon or during sales. This wheel uses gear technology inside, which is nowhere near as good as direct drive, and has a peak strength of around 2.5 Nm. Now, you've also got the Thrustmaster T248, which is kind of similar to the G923, a little bit more advanced inside. It utilizes belts and gear technology to create a sort of hybrid drive. That has a peak strength of 3.5 Nm, which is very close to this R3. Although not being direct drive, the detail and fidelity you get from the force feedback isn't quite as good. Now, the T248 retails for around £300 or $400. And then you have the Fanatec CSL DD bundle. This is comparable, being another direct drive racing wheel, and it also beats the MOZA R3 in terms of strength, with 5 Nm of peak torque instead of 3.9, but that comes at a price. Normally, the wheelbase alone, without a steering wheel, without pedals, costs around €350 or dollars, but you can find bundles available depending on when you look from around €400 or dollars upwards. So as you can see, the R3 bundle is a little bit more pricey than the gear and belt driven wheels, but it comes with improved performance, and just looking at the numbers, it seems to offer pretty good value for a sub $400 price tag. But before I give you my final conclusion, let's jump into each part of this bundle. I'll break down the design, the build quality and performance. And I'm obviously going to start with the most important part, the wheelbase. Looking at MOZA's R3 wheelbase, you'll notice right away that it strays away from MOZA's normal design trend quite considerably. And I'd just like to take credit for that for a minute. Here's a clip of my previous MOZA R12 review where I suggested a design change for the next wheelbase that MOZA launched. Both the R9 and R5 wheelbases implement this design, so it would have been a little bit nicer to see a bit of design flair here and there, maybe something that makes this R12 wheelbase stand out from the crowd a little. As you can see, they must have got this idea from me, so credit claimed.
I do want the credit without any of the blame.
The design itself is a huge throwback to the original design of the Xbox. I'm not sure if that was a coincidence or a planned move, but I kinda like it. Small fins on each side also replicate the Xbox's design pretty closely, making me think this was an intentional choice. Nice work, MOZA. It's great that MOZA are open to different designs moving forwards. What is really impressive though is the size of this wheelbase. It is absolutely tiny. Now I thought the MOZA R5 wheelbase was already pretty small, but this R3 wheelbase is considerably smaller than that. Here you can see the R3 alongside the R5 to show you a real size comparison. You'll see this is easily the smallest wheelbase, and the design does fit in well with the traditional MOZA styling and brand identity, despite being pretty different. It reduces its size in every area, width, height and depth. Getting a direct drive motor and all components inside this chassis must have been a real challenge. Body of the wheelbase itself is constructed from aluminium, which is a nice touch. Many lower cost racing wheels heavily utilise plastic, so I'm glad to see that MOZA has steered clear of this and are keeping the build quality high. Although the metal parts of the R3 wheel do have a slightly grey hue to them. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but it does stand out alongside the black plastic on the rear of the wheelbase and the jet black quick release. On the back of the wheelbase you've got a range of ports. When you're using this racing wheel with an Xbox console, you need to connect all your MOZA peripherals to the wheelbase for them to work. That isn't a problem though, as you'll find plenty of ports available. You've got the power input, your USB out port, plus the power button, and under these you'll see individual ports for various peripherals. But for now with this bundle we'll just be using the pedal port. On the front of the wheelbase you'll find the quick release, and this R3 wheel uses the same quick release concept that MOZA's been using since day one. This NRG style quick release uses ball bearings to lock your steering wheel in place, and it makes it very sturdy. And it also makes removing and attaching the steering wheel incredibly quick and simple. If you're racing on PC, you can use any of the V2 steering wheels that MOZA sell with this base. However, for now, if you're racing on Xbox, only the ES steering wheel that comes with the wheelbase will work for now. Flipping the wheelbase upside down, you'll find your pre-drilled mounting holes. Much like the R5, these are very close together, so if you're planning on mounting to a cockpit or sim rig, you may actually need to drill additional holes in your mounting plate to accommodate such a close mounting pattern. On the other hand, you could just use the table clamp that's included. This lines up perfectly with the wheelbase and mounts it at a slight upwards angle. You can then very quickly attach a wheel to the desk or a table. The table clamp itself is very stable, as it's also constructed from metal, so it can easily withstand the strength of the direct drive motor. As long as you tighten it enough, you shouldn't have any issues with wobbling or flex at all. Now, my biggest issue with this table clamp is the metal screw plates that they use on the underside of your table or desk. They're also constructed from metal, but they have no padding whatsoever. And this can leave marks on your desk or your table if you tighten them too much. This issue is the same as the issue on the R5 table clamp, and all that MOZA really needs to do is add a little piece of foam on both metal clamps. Now moving on to the steering wheel, this wheel is the ES wheel, which is what you get with the R5 bundle, although a few tiny little tweaks here and there. It features a metal faceplate on the front with a plastic body at the rear. But overall, the build quality is pretty high. The push buttons on the front of the wheel feel pretty good to use with a short throw and a nice click, although it's worth saying that the two larger buttons towards the bottom of the wheel do feel a little bit more wobbly, a little bit more squishy. There's just a little bit of play in the buttons themselves, and when you combine this with a short throw, it can sometimes be hard to know if you actually press the button or not, especially in the heat of a race. Across the top of the wheel is a customizable rev bar, and this worked flawlessly on PC, and it can be customized via MOZA's Pit House software. However, I couldn't actually get it to function correctly on Xbox. Flipping the wheel over, on the rear you'll find two paddle shifters. These are also constructed from metal and use a spring mechanism. The resistance is relatively good considering they aren't magnetic, and they produce a nice satisfying click, albeit a little on the loud side. If you race with the TV volume turned up loud, the clicking won't be an issue. Although if you race with headphones on, your partner in the next room might get a little sick of the constant clicking noise. Now, hand grips feature a nice moulded shape and use a PU leather material. This feels pretty nice and comfortable in your hands, but it is worth noting that this material is different from the leather material found on the original ES wheel. The hand grip materials in this Xbox R3 bundle feel a little bit cheaper and more rubbery, which is a bit of a shame. You can see here a comparison with the original wheel rim, which has a much nicer material on the hand grips. There's also a little bit of perforation on the hand grips, but this isn't real perforation like you get on a Logitech G923. Instead, the hand grips feature small indents just to give the impression of perforation. For a budget steering wheel, this ES wheel does stack up relatively well to wheels from other brands, although my biggest issue is the small diameter. The wheel comes in at 218mm across, which I think is too small for a circular steering wheel. Now, this size is pretty common for entry-level wheels, so it's not a huge negative when you compare it to its other competitors. It's worth noting there is also a Formula-style wheel rim upgrade which you can easily attach to the steering wheel, and I'd recommend it if you race with games such as F1 23 or other open wheel games. You can see I've got the attachment here, and it does make the wheel look and feel much nicer. Now, to complete this bundle, you get the SRP Lite pedals. This is a 2-pedal set with a brake and a throttle, and I'm going to start by saying these are about as basic as you can get with sim racing pedals. I mean, they're fine to use, but really nothing special. Both the throttle and the brake are pretty easy to push with very little resistance, and the brake is a bit stiffer than the throttle. But this is where the problem lies, particularly with the brake pedal. To be consistent under braking, you'll want to learn the correct muscle memory. How hard to brake initially and how to release the brake pressure as your car slows are vital to maximising your braking performance and not locking up a wheel. And I really struggle to do that with such a light brake pedal. Now, you can buy an upgrade kit for around $15, which does include a much heavier spring. And this is a must buy to improve this pedal set. And at such a low cost, just $15, I'd recommend anyone buying the R3 bundle to opt for this brake accessory kit. It's a bit of a shame they don't actually include it as standard. You can also buy a third pedal for around $40, which makes this 2-pedal set a full 3-pedal set. This optional third pedal is a clutch pedal, which features pretty much the same resistance as the original throttle. It's worth saying that there is no load cell upgrade available for this pedal set, which kind of limits its upgrade potential. But at this price range, the quality is pretty good, even without the more professional feature set. The entire pedal set is constructed from metal, which is an improvement over almost every other budget sim racing pedal, and you get a good amount of adjustability in where you mount each pedal. If you're using these pedals on the floor unmounted, MOZA has included 2 nice sort of silicone grips which you can attach to the underside of the pedals, and these work pretty well. They stop them from wobbling about or moving as you hit the brake pedal. Alternatively, you could still mount them to a sim rig or a wheel stand, or if you are racing underneath a desk, consider just pushing them up against a wall to stop them from moving. Now, I do want to move on to how well this bundle performs as a whole, as really that is about as important as any other part of this review. Being a direct drive racing wheel, the internal motor is directly mounted to the steering shaft, which is a good thing. This allows for the highest level of force feedback detail to be sent to the wheel, and there are no belts or gears for force feedback to get lost in. You can really feel the detail in this wheel, as it's incredibly crisp and quite easily outperforms the competitors from Logitech and Thrustmaster. You can really feel the change in track surface, and thanks to the light steering wheel, the wheel will really dance around in your hands thanks to the quick response times. At 3.9 Nm of peak torque, the maximum performance available is lower than other MOZA wheelbases. The R5 creates up to 5 Nm of peak torque, while my favourite, the R12, produces up to, you guessed it, 12 Nm of peak torque. In comparison, this makes the R3 on paper look quite underpowered. However, it feels far from it. The force feedback feels strong enough, with enough weight for you to be able to feel your car's weight balance shifting around the corner. But if you've previously used the R5, the R9 or the R12, you can tell that you're using a lower powered wheel. This wheelbase does its best to try and keep up with those bigger, stronger wheels, but does fall a little short thanks to its limitation in peak power. But that said, the R3 does beat both the G923 and Thrustmaster wheels in the power department, and you can really tell this. Being direct drive is always an advantage, but the MOZA R3 puts the technology to good use to really feel solid. Internally, there are no fans, making this wheel very quiet to use. Instead, the outer casing is designed to be the heatsink, much like with other MOZA wheels. This draws the heat from the internals and out via the case. Now, the case itself does get warm during use, but never to a point where it felt too hot. The heatsink works well, allowing for longer races. I spent around 7 hours racing with this wheelbase almost consecutively one evening, and the performance was flawless throughout. And that brings us nicely onto whether this is a racing wheel bundle that you should actually consider buying. And simply put, if you're an Xbox sim racer who fancies a upgrade over a tiring Logitech or Thrustmaster wheel, then this R3 bundle is a solid choice. The performance is much better than other gear or belt driven wheels on the market, and that instantly puts it up there as one of the best budget racing wheels on Xbox. The fact that all inputs on the steering wheel function correctly when racing on a console is really nice. It's so often the case that Xbox racing wheels lose functionality compared to when connected to a PC, but that isn't really the case here. The negatives of this bundle mainly lie with the pedals, but they can be somewhat fixed by the addition of a relatively cheap accessory kit. However, if you're a PC sim racer, I wouldn't be as quick to recommend the R3. MOZA already sell the R5 bundle, which is a straight up improvement over the R3. So I'd be more inclined to recommend that, or even try and stretch to an R9 or R12 as they are vastly better. But overall, seeing Xbox compatibility on a MOZA product is exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what products MOZA produce to work alongside this new part of their impressive portfolio.